couple things that we want to play for you. But it's starting with this. This is the one thing that really got everybody going. And this is Gabe Kapler extended, if you will. Remember the last controversy we had with Gabe Kapler came when he sort of answered a question with a question. When someone asked about pinch hitting for one of the young guys late in the game, and the Giants had lost, and Cap was ticked, and so he sort of fired like, "Well, why do you think I did it?"
Nice.
And then this goes back and forth, and everybody was critical of Gabe, and Gabe came out and apologized. And we do all this stuff sometimes when it's not what's being said, it's how it's being said. Did this hit you a certain way? Kyle Shanahan, Matty Mayoko, NBC Sports Bay Area is the other voice you will hear. And this is the two of them talking about Jimmy Garoppolo's podcast comments from Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, I think anytime you trade up to the third pick in the draft and it doesn't work out, that's a weird situation. But that is the situation. So that's what happened. I don't think it's that weird. It's unusual that doesn't work out. But I wouldn't think that's weird. I think it's unusual. What do you think?
The fact that he said goodbye, the day after that one season's over, and he's, all the things that happened with him physically, he comes back, he's, on the side field and ends up re-signing and starting, and it just seems like, it's been a unique.
And you remember why that happened?
I remember why everything happened, but I'm just saying it's been a unique situation. But
I agree it's been unique.
Okay, so
do you remember why that happened?
But okay, you're shaking your head. So, like, what's going through your mind when you hear that?
Kyle Shanahan is being defensive, and I get why he's being defensive because he has to defend the biggest mistake in Bay Area history, and it was a massive, massive mistake. And so, hopefully, for Kyle's sake, and I'm sure that Kyle's thinking about this in his own mind. Once I can get through this portion of the season, I can put it behind him. And I don't think that Kyle should or will have to answer any more questions about Trey Lance and the draft day trade. I know it was before the draft, but you traded 3 first rounds and a third round to move up to take a quarterback. Right. And you weren't sure, and I read the Tim Kawakami piece today in The Athletic about like the 10 things in the timeline, and Tim actually...
It's amazing.
Tim put out there that they drafted up, and this is what Steiny had said before, and I do want to praise Steiny before people think that there's a feud. Steiny said this a long time ago, that they traded up to draft a quarterback, not the quarterback. And it came down to the last weekend, and then Kyle had a private moment or a quiet moment, and he decided that Trey Lance was the guy, and turned out that Trey Lance wasn't the guy.
Yep. So
Kyle mucked it up. He mucked it up big time, and I do hear him in that back and forth with Matt Mayoko being a little bit defensive. And I'm not surprised.
No, and I do think most of us would agree, just, while we're on this subject, like sort of a failed idea to trade up to a spot rather than have a specific player in mind, trade up for a player.
Right.
Which it sounds like, again, that's the way the story goes. The 49ers traded up to a spot. Their reasoning behind that was twofold. A, if you get to 3, knowing that Lawrence and Wilson are going 1-2, if you get to 3, well, that takes all of the other stuff off. There's nothing can happen. Whoever we decide, he will be there.
Mac, Justin, or Trey.
Right, and that's one. The other thought being that, you need to have a trade partner. And we were at 12, and so we poked around to everybody who was in front of us, and that's who said yes. So that was their reasoning. But wouldn't you agree that's poor reasoning? That's poor reason. I don't want.
I don't think that the reasoning is poor.
Well,
the result was poor. And you always talk about process versus result. I do think the process is sound if you look at all 3 guys who might be available, and you're okay with all 3. And clearly, they were not okay with all 3.
No.
I don't think that they ever looked at Justin Fields seriously. So it came down to Trey Lance, Captain Upside, or Mac Jones, Mr. Limited, and they chose Captain Upside. And I'm not saying that Mac Jones is extremely limited. I think Kyle Shanahan liked Mac Jones, but then he was tantalized by what Trey possibly could be, and that ultimately is what swung it.
Do you want to know why I think Kyle Shanahan sounds the way he does there? I think Kyle Shanahan.
Would you say he sounds defensive?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it started that way. When he first asked Matt, what did you think? It sounded like he was asking in a genuine, like, what did you think? This is what I think. What did you think? But then when he flips it at the end and he does do you remember why we did? That's when we're going a different direction.
Defense.
Right. Now we're going a different direction. Okay. So is Kyle, and I've heard all these words. I've heard defensive.
Yeah.
I've heard arrogant. I have
Monotone.
No, I haven't heard monotone. That's mainly from you.
You've heard stuff.
There have been a few other words. They all sort of mean stuff that's in the same area code as that.
Yeah.
But if it's dismissive, arrogant, angry or defensive, whatever it is, I think he's that way. And this is a tough spot. This is a tough spot to be when you're highly paid and you're the boss, which means the buck stops with you, and you're out front of a very, very public organization. You have a very public job that calls for you to speak publicly repeatedly over and over. You're never going to have a job like that and not get criticized a lot. But I think Kyle looks at this the same way that maybe all of your perceptions are of how I look at this, right? I'm Johnny Blue Sky over here. I'm always defending Kyle. I have a room at his house, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Kyle looks at this and in a general sense is like, why are we all so negative about my time here? If I'm Kyle, I think this has gone pretty well. So why is the questioning like this? That would be my guess. I don't know this, but I think the defensiveness, if that's the word you want to use, or whatever you're thinking when you hear that, I think it comes from that place where it's like, okay, right? You weaved your way through the whole Garoppolo Lance thing. It comes to a head last Friday, and now here we are. He's probably thinking, okay, all right, we're done with the preseason, final rosters. Let's go. First day, new season. All right, everyone, what do you want to ask about? Sir, Jimmy Garoppolo just spoke out on a podcast, and he's probably like, really? Really? Like, really? We're like a favorite? We're a favorite to win this banana, and we were 13-4, and that's where we are. And the reason I have some compassion on that, is I don't think there's a human being alive that wouldn't snap sometimes if they were in his position. That's what I'd say.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was constantly asked about previous shows I've been on or previous stations, even though you and I are in a Super Bowl window, I mean, it would get a little bit annoying. And, those questions come up and you try to answer it with as much class and patience as you can. But you're right about Kyle Shanahan, where he is in terms of right now. The preseason's over. Camp is over. You have your roster. You've got your 53 that you're going to ride with. And Jimmy's not one of them. And Trey's not one of them, but I got Sam and Brandon, and I got Brock, and let's talk about my team. Jimmy Garoppolo on a podcast, so I can see where that's frustrating.
Well, and part of it is the way the world works. I don't know why this just popped into my head. So this was years ago. Ty Willingham is coaching at Stanford.
Wow.
Okay? Yeah, long time ago. And I'm cruising around listening to sports radio in the Bay. And I think Stanford was crappy. I don't know what their record was, but call it what it probably was. They're probably 4-6 or something like that. And Ty Willingham's got a weekly spot, so he comes on every week. And the hosts are like, trying to do what we sometimes do in sports radio, where it's like, let's just make it. How about guy talk, right? Let's just kind of be entertaining and talk about other stuff. And Ty Willingham, about 5 questions in, he gives like a one-sentence answer, and then he's just like, hey, are we going to talk about Stanford football? Are we talking about Stanford football at all? And here's the problem. Here's what the host in that situation can't say to Ty. Ty, no one's interested right now.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, and this is what I really would love to hear from all of you on, 888-957-9570. Like, the 49ers are a favorite. What would you like to say about that? Because the social media, the interaction that we have on a daily basis, like, Kyle would, let's talk about Brock Purdy. What do you want us to ask?
Right.
What is it we're supposed to say about this 13-4 team that's supposed to be good again? Hey, Kyle, you think it'll be good again? Yeah, I do.
I mean, hey, Kyle, you've won 12 of your last 13, and the only game you lost not one but two quarterbacks, and you had no quarterback. Are you afraid of this losing skid continuing? I mean, what are you supposed to ask the guy?
I don't know. And so this gets,
other than like nuanced like roster questions.
Listen, I mean, what do you see on Netflix? What do you see on soap operas? People are going to go for the drama, and that is where this is. You know what I mean? Like I see this a lot when people go, "Gosh, there's nothing but trash on TV." So, are you telling me that Hollywood is so dumb that they've just decided, you know what I think we want to do? Let's only make crap and put it on the TV. Or do you think they're doing that because you, the American public, have told them with every data point that that is what you'd like to watch? So people do this all the time. Why don't you talk about the linebackers? Because you don't care.
Right.
You don't care.
Who's going to be the third corner? I mean, really?
Why don't you talk about how good they're going to be? They're going to be good. Now what?
Isaiah Oliver, 888-957-9570.
But that wears Kyle out. And I get it.
Right. I get it too.
I totally get it.
But I also know that, and he's aware of this, that the reason why so many people are talking about this team right now is because they're good, but also because of the unusual or weird, however you want to put it, drama at the quarterback position. Because you've gone from Trey Lance to Jimmy, back to Trey, to Brock, to Trey, kind of. Trey's out. Sam is in. You've got Brandon. No more Trey. He's in Dallas. Jimmy's in Vegas, and he's sounding off. And will Brock's arm hold up? There's a lot of drama there, and that's what people really care about.
It is weird. It is unusual.
Thank you.
It is unique. It is dramatic. And you're right. So I sort of look at it now from this standpoint. I totally get why so many of you have so much to say about it. I totally get why so many are activated or maybe even angry. And I get why Kyle is one of those people. I get why Kyle is one of those people. So I wonder almost how people would throw this out. Like, you know, we're fully aware, as we're sort of detailing right now. I get where this conversation comes from. I get why the way it is. I know you know what people think about your opinions on this, and I certainly know what people think about my opinions on this. I know you all think that I live at Kyle's house. I might be on his payroll. I'm a homer. I'm a honk. All of these things, right? So what if we open this up for a more general and, if you will, a safe space conversation? Because when I listen to Kyle Shanahan, that's where my brain goes. My brain goes, I get your mistakes. I get that your successes are way more. And I have compassion for why you sound, I forgot the word I was trying to think of.
Yep.
Ready for it?
Annoyed?
Condescending.
Oh, yeah.
I get it. I get why you sound condescending. But I also genuinely want to know what it is, because maybe it's not condescension. Maybe it's drafting running backs in the third round every year. Maybe it's that play call against Kansas City that Guru can't get over. Whatever it is, I genuinely want to know, what's your beef with Kyle Shanahan? Because, and here's why it's a genuine question. I have literally now sat in this chair with you for 2 years and in this market for 4.5. And for 48, I have watched this
and
team.
Counting.
And a half. 48 and a hook.
Let's go.
And watch this team. And I've listened, I've watched it, I've experienced it, and I have failed to find the anger, the beef.
Well,
Wendy's,
you just nailed
Wendy's,
it.
where's the beef?
Thank you.
I can't find it, but I'd love to know from everyone who's found it, where did you find it? Where does it come from?
You just use the words. It's arrogance and condescension.
Okay.
And I'm going to say that he has every right to be arrogant, and he should be condescending because he knows more about football than all of us. And that's why he has this job. And if he was not doing well, then he would be in a little bit more of a difficult spot. He'd be more defensive, and he would probably be less arrogant. But I think that fans get put off by the way he goes about it in terms of those two words, arrogance and condescension. And he's condescending, I don't think he's like grossly condescending, but there is that air of it, that air of, I know more than you do. And he does know more than we do.
He does.
And that's where the arrogance comes in as well. But I do think that fans look at the situation at quarterback and they say, and this is where you have a hard time with this phrase, but he needs to be held accountable. I was listening, just give you a quick little story. My neighbor across the street sent me a clip of a national sports talk host who used to work at this station.
Okay.
And he's going on and on about how Kyle's getting a pass. And this wouldn't fly in New York. And this wouldn't fly in Philadelphia. And my lovely neighbor, Sarah, is like, this is the stuff that I absolutely hate. And I listened to the clip, and I was like, I did 3 years with that guy. And all I can think about is,
It's true about every radio host in
they
America,
went
by the way.
13-4.
Yeah.
That's why he gets a pass, Mark.